Life Stories Live.
Another live story on Lifestories Worldwide tonight on Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube. Please don't just enjoy it yourself. Please tell your friends about it. Pass on the message. It's going to be a wonderful story you're going to hear tonight. And we really will be encouraging to you. And please, if you need help, if you need prayer, please contact us on our hotline, +44 794 355 0287. You can WhatsApp, you can text, or you can phone, and there'll be someone there to get back to you as soon as possible. You can also go to our website, lifestoriesworldwide.com. There you can find out lots of information about all the testimonies and life stories that are going out on broadcast every day, apart from Saturday. And also every Monday, you can find out all the past stories that we've been sharing on this Monday evening. At the age of 23, she found something that changed her life, but she got involved in lap dancing and a gentleman's club, but she wasn't very happy. But now her life has been completely changed. There was a transformation she's going to tell you about. And now she wants to help other people who are going through similar circumstances. Now she's been set free from all the shame and the guilt, and has a wonderful new life. And tonight, Chantell is going to tell her story. So thank you, Chantell. I hand over to you now to share your story.
Thank you so much, Alan. Good evening, everyone. It's just a true blessing to be able to come on here and just share what God has done, because like you said, Alan, you know, God has completely transformed my life. My life wasn't always as great as it is now, but that's only because of what the Lord has done. And I just want people to know today that God is a transforming God. He's a God that, you know, he understands everything that we all go through. He understands the dark times that we may experience. You know, when we're feeling low, when we're feeling lonely, he's truly there. And all he asks is that we submit to him. And before, I'm just going to get straight into it because it is quite a long story. So I'm going to try and squeeze it in the time that I have. But yeah, so basically my life wasn't the very best from an early age. So I was born into a single parent household, and I struggled from a very early as I can remember with the fact that my dad wasn't around. I really longed for my own dad as a child. I felt like I was the reason that he wasn't around. I felt abandoned by my dad. I just felt very, very low. I was very insecure from a very early age. And it was really, really difficult for me just growing up in that household, knowing that my dad wasn't there. And when I was about 5 or 6, my mum met my sister's dad, and my sister was born, and he was absolutely amazing with me. He made sure that I was included in everything. He made sure that I was a part of the family. He made sure that, you know, I felt like I belonged to a family. And although he was like that with me, I still longed for my dad. A lot of the times in primary school, I would be getting into trouble because I didn't know how to express my feelings, how to express the emotions that I was feeling inside, because I had this void in my heart. And it's really important for me to say now that during this time, I didn't know the Lord at all. I didn't have a relationship with Jesus. I would be sent to church on a Sunday, occasionally, in a little white minibus that would come and pick us up and take us to church. And I absolutely hated it because I felt like no one understood me. And I felt like, you know, if my dad doesn't want me, you know, why would this God want me? And so I didn't really relate to anybody in church at this time, so I didn't like to go. As I said, I was getting into trouble at school, trying to express my emotions, but it was more attention seeking, because of this void that I had inside that nothing could fill. And I remember the day that my stepdad and my mum sat us down. I was about 10 years old at this point, and they sat us down and they said that my stepdad and my mum were breaking up. And as you can imagine, for me, that was really difficult because he's the only person that I knew that, you know, was like a father to me. And so knowing that I wouldn't see him every day was really, really difficult, because I remember the film Jurassic Park, the really, really, really old one. And I remember watching that as a kid and thinking to myself, you know, if dinosaurs ever came back to roam on this earth, I know that my stepdad would protect me, because that's how I saw him. I saw him as a hero. I saw him as someone that would protect and take care of me. And so when they said that they were breaking up, I really, really struggled. But without fail, he would pick us up every weekend. He would take my sister and I out. He would take us to McDonald's. We'd just have a lovely weekend with him. And I longed for those weekends, because I didn't see him in the week anymore. It's like I really was desperate for those weekends to see my stepdad, because I loved him dearly. But then one day, a few years later, he sat my sister and I down in the car, and he said that he's moving away for a year. He's moving to Canada for work. Well, he said that in a year's time he would be back, but during this time he would call us every single day. And for myself, that was like another heartbreak again, because I'm not going to see him every weekend anymore. I'm only going to see him in a year's time, but he's going to call us every single day. And I held on to those words, because I knew that those daily phone calls would keep me going until we saw him a year later. And the day that my stepdad actually moved away to Canada, he didn't call my sister and I for 4 years. And it was really difficult. And I find it difficult talking about it now, because I was just, this was like a rejection again from another man that had promised to protect me. So not only has one father left me, but another father has now left me. And I just thought, you know, what is it? What is it about me? Why are these men leaving my life? What is it that's making men leave? And I really, like at the age of 12, took that burden upon myself and felt like I'm the reason that these dads have left, because none of them want to stay, because none of them love me. And I found it so hard. And I'd sit with my mum and I'd say to my mum, like, why doesn't he love us? Why hasn't he called us? And my mum didn't even, bless her heart, she didn't even know like how to deal with it. She could just be the best mum that she could be for us. But I really struggled. I'd been abandoned again by someone that I thought loved me. And when I got to the age of 14, I realized that I needed this male voice in my life. I needed male attention. I needed the male voice that was not there. And so from the age of 14, I then decided upon myself that in order for me to have men in my life, or in order for me to keep boys in my life, I must give my body to them. And so from the age of 14, I then started to live a really promiscuous lifestyle. And thinking back now, it's really hard because people, like, I had a really bad reputation in school. And, you know, boys would talk about me and girls would talk about me, but no one understood the reason that I was behaving this way. And I didn't understand either. I didn't realize that this void that I had of this male voice, that's why I was seeking this attention from boys, because I needed to feel like I was worth something. And the only way that I'd feel like I was worth something is by the attention that I was getting by giving my body to boys. And even if it was just for one night, I felt like I had some form of worth for that one night. And I know even now when I look at the world now and I look at some of the young girls that are promiscuous and fatherless, and you know, people are looking down their noses at them and thinking why they're behaving like this. But a lot of the time it's that void that they're trying to fill. And I was trying to fill a void in my heart with male attention, but it was temporary. And this continued in my teenage years. And like I said, I didn't know God. I'd have very, very strange dreams about Jesus. So although I didn't know him, I kind of still prayed sometimes, even though no one told me to. And, you know, I know now that during all of this time, the Lord was with me, but I didn't know then. And, you know, I was going through bullying because girls didn't like me, because they were jealous of me, because boys were showing me attention. I was getting attacked by girls almost every single week. I had about 30 girls attack me. One of them bit me in my face. My face was hanging off. I just had a lot going on, and I was going through anxiety and panic attacks and all these forms of mental health issues as well, because I was just so broken and I didn't know how to express how I felt. So I was going through like a lot of panic attacks, thinking that I'm dying, letting my mum call the ambulance taking me to the hospital because I'm hyperventilating and bringing my blood pressure up. And it was a really dark time. I'll be honest. I didn't want to live. I didn't want to live at all, because I felt like no one loved me. And, you know, I felt that dads didn't love me, people didn't love me. And, you know, I'm being attacked and I'm being used, and I did not want to live. And, you know, but I was also scared to die. Just the unknown of death. I know that is why I did not commit suicide, even though I thought about it many times as a teenager. And when I was 16, I was walking home from school with my best friend, just out of the blue. She said to me, Shan, I really, really like your coat. Let's swap coats. And as you do at 16, you know, she had a really, really trendy coat on. And I was like, yeah, like, let's swap coats. I really love your coat. And so we swapped coats. About half an hour later, we walked past another girl's house that I thought was a friend of mine, but clearly she wasn't. And she came out and she started arguing with me. And I don't even remember what the argument was about. And, you know, she attacked me. And then her sister and another girl attacked me. And so whilst my best friend was there trying to get these three girls off of me, the girl that originally came out of a house pulled out a knife, like a knife that the thick ones that you use to cut like a big loaf of bread. And she stabbed me in the back. And where she stabbed me was on the same side as my heart. Well, I was rushed to the hospital, and the first thing that the doctor said to me was these were the exact words that the doctor mentioned. He said, Chantell, he said, you are very lucky. I know it's not luck now. I know it's a blessing of God. But he said, you're very lucky. He said, the coat that you was wearing saved your life. And I know the thickness of the coat, because it was denim, the knife couldn't go in deep enough to actually penetrate my heart. So just before I got stabbed, God had allowed my best friend to swap coats with me, and the coat was what protected me from death at that point, at the age of 16. And I know now that God kept me for a reason. He kept me because he knew where I'd be today. But during that time, I actually wondered why I lived, because my life was so a mess. I just wondered, like, why was I allowed to live when so much, my life is just so painful and just so dark, and there's no hope. I have no hope. I couldn't even look 5 years into the future, because when I looked into the future, all I saw was darkness. I didn't see any hope. I didn't see, I just didn't feel like I was worth living. So when I lived that day, I actually questioned, like, why am I still here? And I remember sitting down around that time and saying, I don't believe this is going to happen, but in 10 years' time, if I'm still alive, I'm going to write a book about my life, because there must be a reason why I'm going through all of this stuff. There must be a reason. But I didn't have any hope for 10 years' time, so I didn't think that was going to happen. I just remember saying it. After that, when I reached about 17, even after getting stabbed before, when I was 16, after getting stabbed, I was still getting bullied and attacked by these other girls that hated me, even like 2 weeks after getting stabbed. And like I said, it was really dark. But at the age of 17, I met my daughter's dad, and I literally got pregnant the first time that we actually got together. And being pregnant, I thought to myself, at first, I thought, oh, I can't keep this baby. I'm not having this baby. But I remember sitting down one day and saying, no, I want to keep my baby. I want to have someone to love and for someone to love me back. And so I told my daughter's dad that I was keeping my baby. And he was completely against it. He was nasty to me. He said, all the guys know who you are. I don't want a baby with you. And I said, well, that's fine, but I'm choosing to have my baby. But when she was born, he decided to get with me just for the sake of the baby, he said. But that was probably one of the worst decisions that I could have made, because then I entered at the age of 17 into a very, very abusive relationship. So after coming from being stabbed, after coming from being bullied, to then having a baby.
Lifestories Live.
And thinking, things are going to be great now. I was then in a domestic abusive relationship at the age of 17, where my daughter's dad would beat me up almost every day. He would be emotionally abusive to me. He would say things like, no one wants you. And those words were the harder then and more painful than actually being hit, because I already believed that nobody wanted me. And so when he would say these things, I would believe, but I only stayed because I felt like I didn't have any hope with anybody else. I didn't think anybody else would want me. And I also didn't want my daughter to grow up in a single parent household. And I also didn't know what a healthy relationship looks like. So I thought the fact that he was abusive to me and he would beat me up, I thought that was normal in a relationship. So I stayed. When he would get arrested for it, I would take back my statements, and, he would coerce me into taking back my statement and saying he would change and all those things. And I'm only 17, so I didn't know any better at this time. But a few years later, my daughter, well, he went to prison for something completely unrelated to me. And that was finally my escape, because I wouldn't have left him otherwise. And I don't know, it probably could have killed me eventually, but I wouldn't have left him. But when he went to prison, that was like my escape. But at the same time, I'm now here as a single parent with a baby, thinking, who's going to want me now? You know, because he had damaged any form of tiny bit of worth that I had. I honestly didn't believe that anyone would want me at all. And especially now that I've got a baby, like, who would want me? You know, I'm used goods. I'm someone that everyone's used. I'm someone that dads don't want. Like, who's going to want me now? And I truly believe that. So I then got back into this promiscuous lifestyle. And then I remember meeting this person, and they said to me, they said, you know, you've got a baby. Your baby's like almost, 1.5. You go to college once a week. You're not making any money. Why don't you get into lap dancing? And I was age 19 at this point, and I thought, wow, number one, I can make money. So that's like amazing. And number two, I get attention from men. And don't forget, I crave this attention. And so I thought, this is an absolute win-win situation for me. And so for the next 4 years of my life, from the age of 19, I became a lap dancer. And it was horrible. It was like it was dark, it was seedy, it was horrible. You know, a lot of the women in the club would be taking drugs and to get through the night. I was afraid of drugs, so I would sit in my car before I went to work, and I would drink a whole bottle of wine, just neck a whole bottle of wine in my car. And then I'd go into this club and I'd pretend to be the most confident woman and just walk around as if I'm confident, make this money, and then I'd go home and I'd cry myself to sleep, because this void that I thought lap dancing and men and the money and all this attention could get was not filling the void. The void was still there, although I thought that this would be filled. And so for 4 years, I would go to the club and I would make money. I'd be drinking all the time. I'd be living this promiscuous lifestyle. I was broken. I was empty. I felt so unloved. I didn't feel like anyone would ever love me. I felt like men couldn't be trusted, because a lot of men that were in there would say that they're married and, they've got girlfriends. So I thought, there's no hope. This world, there's just no hope. Like, this is it. But the reason why I stayed there for that long was because I felt like I didn't have anything else going for me. And I didn't feel like there was anything else that I was good at that I could do with my life. But a year before I stopped, I left the club, and I remember going home and I remember putting the TV on. And at that point, there was a station. It was called UCB Inspiration, which is United Christian Broadcasters. They're called UCB Radio now, but at that time it was UCB Inspiration. I remember putting the TV on, stumbling upon this channel and hearing about this man called Jesus and how he's a father to the fatherless. And I remember sitting there, I was like literally drawn in. And I thought, who is this God? Who is this father to a fatherless? Like, who is this father to the fatherless? Who is this God that wants to be a father? Because I haven't got a father. I want to know this God. And for a whole year without fail, I would go to the lap dancing club, and then I would go home and put UCB straight on and cry and just listen to these words and listen to these, worship songs and just weep, because something was being done inwardly that I didn't even realize. And that's really important to say as well, that, sometimes we may be praying for someone in our family that we think everything looks hopeless. And even on the outside, everything may still seem hopeless, but we don't know if God has begun an inward work in that person. Because for a whole year, I'm still lap dancing, I'm still drinking, I'm still meeting men, but the Lord had done an inward work, or began an inward work, that nobody else had saw and that I didn't tell anybody about. So we should never give up hope and never stop praying for those that we love when all looks hopeless, because we don't know what God could be doing. So I thought I'd just throw that part in, because I know that I wasn't actually in that church building at that time for God to meet me. God met me exactly where I was at. He came and he found me just after the lap dancing club in my house, putting the TV on. God came and met me in where I was at. And I'm just so grateful because for that whole year, I started to go off lap dancing. I'd still go, but sometimes I wouldn't go even though I knew I could make a lot of money. And the day that I stopped dancing, a lot of stuff happened in that year. Like some weird things happened to me in New York. I encountered a witch in New York who put some weird curse, and just a lot of stuff happened, which I don't have time to go into at the moment. But God kept me in that year, and He was doing a work in me. And the day that I stopped dancing, I remember it was 2008, and it was March the 29th, and I was in the lap dancing club, but this time I had this desire that I need to go to church tomorrow. It came from nowhere, and I was like, I have to go to church. I don't know why, but I have to go to church. And I remember I couldn't shake this feeling, so I went to this manager of the club, fully dressed in lap dance gear, and I said to him, I need to leave early. And he said, why? You're making a lot of money. And I said, I don't know, but I have to go to church in the morning. And he actually he looked me up and down and he went, you, church, if you walked into church, you would set on fire. Well, I know now that he was speaking prophetically over my life because I am truly on fire for God. So he spoke over my life and he didn't even realize what he was saying. But at that time, I just knew he was just taunting me, but I didn't care.
Lifestories Live.